one of the reasons that we asked the president to go to Fort Campbell, there was a recognition that, yes, it was great for the SEALs and the Night Stalkers to be the final piece of the puzzle, but make no mistake about it, this was the hundreds of thousands of soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines, intelligence professionals, foreign service officers that had all contributed to this fight, and that frankly were all part of the end game, even if they weren't right there on target. And the best way to have done that, certainly from the Department of Defense side, was to meet with one of the larger elements, which was the 101st Airborne Division. But I remember when you came down, sir, of course, the team was assembled there, and before you arrived, they understood. And these were seasoned operators. These were not young kids, as you know. When you finally met them, I think you were a little surprised by how seemingly long in the tooth some of these guys were. These were seasoned professionals that understood the magnitude of your decision. They had been involved in hundreds of missions before, and all of them understood that at the end of the day, somebody has to make the decision to go. Sometimes it's at the 06 level, the colonel or the Navy captain, sometimes it's the flag officer level, and then sometimes it's the President of the United States. And they know how hard those decisions are. And they are incredibly bright young men who also understood the kind of the larger political and geopolitical ramifications of this. So for you to show up to thank them, I think they wanted to thank you for making the decision that they knew the risks. They knew that we didn't know whether bin Laden was there. And that was an incredibly bold decision on your part. But the part that I remember most about that visit was after we got through talking to the SEALs and the Night Stalkers, we went over to the 101st. And the plan, at least as I recall, was you were going to get up. We were in a giant hangar, of course. There were hundreds of soldiers out front. You were going to, say some remarks and then kind of shake a few hands, almost a ceremonial shake a few hands.
Right.
Well, you came off the platform, you went down. Sorry.
No, that's how I felt.
You went down to start shaking hands. And of course, the soldiers start lining up.
Right.
And you start shaking hands, and I went to the chief of staff. I said, look, I know the president's got some things going on here, and if he stands there, everybody's going to line up to shake the president's hand. And you kept shaking hands, and finally I kind of saddled up beside you and I said, Mr. President, you don't need to shake everybody's hand. And you turned to me and you said, hey, Bill, this is important to me, and hopefully it's important to them. And you shook 800 hands that day. People were coming from everywhere. When they found out you were shaking hands in the hangar, what you didn't see, which is what I saw, was there was a line outside that hangar. And the kids were lining up, the soldiers were lining up because they knew the president was going to stay there until every single hand.
I will tell you, Bill, because I get emotional about this too. Every one of those kids had signed up and said to the country and to me, and the people who are making decisions about how they're going to be deployed, they had said, we are here, we are ready, and we are willing to sacrifice everything to defend this country. And some of them saw action, and some of them didn't. Some of them had friends who came back, and some of them had friends who didn't come back. Some came back and were grievously wounded. All of them came back with scars that maybe weren't always visible. And, my attitude that day was an attitude that I did my utmost to remind myself every single day. If they were willing to make those sacrifices, the least they should expect is that their leaders, military or civilian, are going to operate with integrity, aren't going to allow politics to intrude in decision making, that they're going to be appreciated, that their sacrifices won't be in vain.